Welcome to If These Pages Could Talk. Today we are talking with a debut author about what she has learned from the time she decided to write her novel all the way up through her almost publication. We're going to talk about all things natural and fantastical and a little tidbits of an author and her editor. So to get us started, I'm Kiersten Marcil, author and adventurer into history. I am here with my co-host,
Sevannah Storm, romance author.
And today we have for you a special guest. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm Kerry Bernard. I am a writer. I write fantasy mostly with a little bit of messy romance in there. I'm also a kind of a writer for my day job, but for that I write pesticide safety manuals, a little bit of a different genre there. But I do like that as well. I'm a wife and a mom. I love the outdoors. I have 2 cats and 2 dogs. That's my basic overview.
Well, we're so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being here. We thought to get us started, today's game, we are going to play a round of I Spy, but it's timed. We're going to do this in under a minute per turn. Otherwise, this might take a while. So just like the childhood game, one of us is going to say, I spy, pick a color, and the other 2 people are going to have to guess what in their background the person is looking at. So does anyone want to volunteer to go first? No hands, I'll go first. All right. I spy with my little eye something black.
In your background or in Kerry's background?
Not my background, is one of yours.
Ah, okay. Well, I've only got a painting, so mine doesn't count. I'm thinking that's little stuffed doll that Kerry's got on the pillow. What is it?
No.
It looks like
It's
a octopus.
It's an angry octopus with like fire eyes.
That's
from my husband.
Is that related?
Me.
Is that related to your book?
No, it's not really, but
okay. Very good. And I should say it's whatever's in your screen, so it's not necessarily what's behind you. There's a hint.
Okay.
That's kind of like that's mean. It could be headphones. It could be Kerry's shirt. It could be a picture frame. It could be my shirt.
I know there's multiple black picture frames in play, so
I know.
It's one of those stuff.
That's probably my shirt.
It is. It's your shirt. You got it.
Don't play poker.
You had 10 seconds left to go, so good job.
Just don't play poker. Honestly, she goes, "That's it." I'm gonna blush. I'm gonna blush, and then you see it.
Sev, you're up.
I
nominate you for next.
I spy. I don't even know what it is, but I'm gonna go with yellow.
All right, yellow. Is it the cord on my door?
Yes, it is. I'm like, I have no idea what that thing is.
Those are my graduation cords.
Oh.
Yeah, I graduated magna cum laude, so that's what they drape over you when you walk up the aisle. So
what's better than confetti?
Yeah, no, there's no confetti. That would have been nice. I felt like that was deserved. All right, Kerry, you're up.
All right. I spy with my little eyes something gray.
I was gonna say the statue. Is that gray or black?
In the back?
Yeah.
It is like a bronzy gray.
The statue?
That's not it.
Okay.
Thought about it though.
Woman.
So I also thought about it.
Oh.
What else is gray? Is it your cross? What is your cross? What color is your cross?
It is actually green.
No, it looks gray, so that's what I.
That's okay. Okay,
you
cool. Good
it.
job, Steph. Wow, you guys are really good at that. We did it.
I like those find the difference games. Here's the 2 pictures. Find 5 differences. I like this game.
Very fun.
I have to play I Spy a lot in the car with my daughter, and there's only so many things to spy going down the highway with trees on both sides.
Yeah.
It's tall and it's green tree.
You don't have to give us a city, but whereabouts are you coming from, Kerry?
I'm in central Maine, so a little bit north of Bangor, which is our second biggest city.
Oh, cool. Very cool. All right. Well, I love your octopus, so that I think that's going to jump us right into you telling us about your new novel, Drained.
Great. Yeah. So I'm really excited, obviously. Drained is about a druidess named Sarlona who is abducted by monsters who feed on magical energy. Um, it's a little bit of a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but kind of with the twist that she falls for a henchman and becomes a beast herself. So that's kind of my pitch for it.
Love it. That's awesome. I can see, Sev, why you are on this book. That's so cool. And you've described it as a dark romance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How is it in terms of spice level? Is it from obviously not Hallmark sweet, but how far up the scale would you say you take us to? What was the term, Sev? Baby habanero that one of our other guests used?
I can't remember.
I think it was baby habanero.
I'd say it's medium spice,
Okay.
but I don't use a lot of anatomically correct language. I kind of do the innuendo metaphor thing, but
Okay.
it is open door.
Oh, okay. Cool. So what makes it dark?
Oh.
Numerous things. I mean, there's dark magic and violence and that sort of thing, but I guess the kind of the darkest aspect is these monsters, they have power over the human body with a touch, basically. So any kind of terrible thing you can imagine going wrong in an animal body, they could do instantly. And they also manipulate chemistry, so they can pretty much control a person's thoughts and actions
And
with a
will.
touch.
And
Yes.
will. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Wow. Very cool.
Mm.
What, okay. So what would you say was your biggest challenge in writing this romance? So to maybe keep it accessible to your readers or make it not too scary?
It's tough. I kind of, when I wrote it, for me, it was more of a fantasy than a romance. So
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking too hard about how healthy are these relationships. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, the hardest thing is not making it too dark, because with monsters like that, it can can get pretty bad pretty fast. So I try to put myself in someone's shoes who hasn't lived with these characters for years and maybe
Mhm.
doesn't know as much about them as I do, and try
Yeah.
to pull it back a little so it's not too much. But
Yeah. No, I hear you. I'm working on the sequel, my second book in my series, and there's a bit of violence against my narrator, and that's something I'm always curious about other authors, how they deal with it, because I got a little too soft-handed, I think, with it the first round, and my beta reader's like, I don't get what her problem is. Why is she freaking out? I'm like, oh, well, I guess I should take it a little darker.
I mean,
So,
I don't feel bad for them at all, but
Mm.
but, but I
There's
think
there's a little bit of you almost sympathize with what they're trying to do, the bad guys. But I love how Salona goes from this timid druidess who's been sheltered, even though she's been treated badly her whole life, she's been sheltered, and how she grows from learning from that timidity to how powerful she becomes in the end. And that is I love that pathway, that growth arc. That's the word.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sev, how did you get introduced to Kerry's
I
book?
can't remember. Did you pitch it?
Yeah, I did. I sent a query letter. Yep.
Mm.
Okay.
Yep, and it landed on my desk. And it passed all the checks and balances because I have many checks. And I passed all of them. It was an easy edit.
Oh, that's great.
Mm.
Yeah. So what do you think jumped out at you first when you were reading it and considering it?
The world building. I mean, right from the start, she's attacked, and how she throws everything at it to try and save herself. That it's an immediate hook. So that was it for me. Yeah. And then I read the whole thing, and voila, here we are.
Nice.
Very simple.
Kerry, I don't know if this might be throwing you a question that I hadn't sent you ahead of time, but what is it that inspired you to write this story?
Versions of it have been in my head for like 20 years. So it's hard to remember really. But I can show you just how weird I am right now. I've always had this
to say we're all weird here.
So when I was 8 years old, I saw this thing in the night. These like glowing yellow eyes, and just terrified me beyond belief. And that's always like just been in my head, like this glowing eyed monster. So maybe it was all like a way to give that a personality or explain it in some weird way. So I don't know, maybe that's it.
What made you decide to finally sit down and write this story?
I've also been like writing it for a really long time. I mean, it's totally different now. Like I totally rewrote it because originally I had this like 400,000 word tome. I've always just loved writing, so I just wrote to kind of relax and just explore and escape and stuff. So it was just kind of a few years ago that I was like, oh, I want to actually be a writer and publish stuff. And then I tried some things and they didn't get a lot of interest. I think maybe they're a little too weird. And then I was like, this is the story I love. This is the one I want to tell the most. So I just like blank slate and kind of wrote it all over in a very condensed form. And it turned out really well, I think. So
Cool. Well, we always love having an editor author duo on. So Sev, I stole one of your questions. I'm sorry, but
I know.
I didn't know until just now. But go ahead and take over because I know you have a couple other questions for Kerry.
Well, I actually stole two of my questions. Like, honestly, you're so fired. No, I was going to say your writing is so clean. Some of the queries I get, I'm like, they're not following industry standards. I can tell within the first paragraph, sometimes even the first line, and your writing was, and I try to nitpick. That's how much do you pass is basically the question. And it was so clean and so well written. How did you get your manuscript so polished? Because it's something all writers struggle with.
That's so awesome to hear. Because I don't feel like I write very clean, but I think maybe it's because I actually have like the tendency to overwrite a lot. And then my manuscripts are so long. I'm like, how am I going to make this reasonable for industry standards? So I, go through one sentence at a time and, do I need this word? Do I need this sentence? Do I need this scene? And I think with Drained, I might have even put it, one paragraph at a time through Grammarly and just I don't pay for Grammarly, but I look for the yellow and I'm like, okay, what did I do wrong there?
Yeah, do the same.
And so
Yeah,
and
and Salona is she starts off like such a sweet little girl and so eager to please, and then how she ends up being so powerful. What of you is in her character?
yikes.
Sorry, I'm
I
springing this on you.
right. Not superficially, we have kind of a lot in common. But I don't think I'm in every character, right?
Yeah.
So what of me is in her, I guess, is the love of nature, kind of appreciating being outside and being okay with being alone. Those are the biggest things. We have kind of the same do no harm motto, I guess. Like, it would upset her if she hurt someone. It would upset me if I hurt someone, even by accident. But that's probably most of it. Maybe she's kind of like how I would want to be, because I don't feel that my evolution has really been sweet and innocent into something powerful. I wish it had, but yeah.
Not yet. Unlike novels, we don't finish after 300 pages. We still have a ways to go, hopefully. Oh, how old is Selena at the I'm saying the name wrong. Selena at
Salona
at the start of the book.
She's 19. Yeah, so she's young.
She's
She
young.
is a girl.
Wow. How much
Just
time? Sorry, how much time passes in the book?
Less than a year.
Okay.
A few months, really.
She's innocent in so many ways.
Oh. And yet it's dark. Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Does that play into what makes it dark? The fact that she is such an innocent to start with?
Yeah, I think for sure it is.
But I mean, they have such a valid reason. The monsters have such a valid reason to want to, because they're trying to save themselves. So, I mean, you side with them. You're like, you can understand. It's just one girl, and she can do so
Right.
much. Yeah. So
Oh.
I
Yeah,
liked it. I love that, the way she's so innocent, and they're like pure evil, but they have like this united goal, and they treat her so well. They really do treat her well.
Yeah, it's kind of it's sort of everyone's a monster in the book except for her to start out with anyway. And but at the same time, no one's a supervillain either. I feel like you can relate to all the characters in their own way.
Yeah.
That's kind of antagonists right there. Oh, cool. Kerry, I know you have some questions too for Sev as your editor, so you want to take it over?
Sure, yeah. I'm pretty interested in Sev's writing, actually. I've read one of her books so far. I was just wondering what's your favorite one? How many have you written, and which one's your favorite?
I've written 25. I have 16 published, and my favorite would be Eye of Silver. It was initially a story about a half elf, and someone said elves are so to do, it's a passe, and I was like, okay, she's now a dark orc. So I changed the whole story, and that's one of my favorites. I listened to the Witcher soundtrack throughout the whole
Oh,
the whole writing. And it was my first NaNoWriMo as well.
oh, cool,
Yeah.
cool.
And then
Yeah,
Cassie signed it. Yeah.
I love the cover, and I saw you just posted a little blurb on Instagram, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to read that.
Yeah,
That's cool.
it was fun to do. And like we discussed in one of our other chats, I have the cover ahead of time. So I had the cover done, I had the story done. I knew exactly what they look like. And I find it easier if you actually have a photograph or an image of what your characters are going to look like and what the
Yeah,
places they're going to go. So that when you describe it in the book, it's quite easy. And you can be consistent.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's IO Silver, yes. It took me forever to find the title.
Really?
Titles are so hard.
Yep. I'm glad we changed yours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, me too. I didn't know what the heck I was gonna call it, honestly. It was like the first thing I just came up with, and then when you changed it, I was like, yeah, that's better.
Just a little bit, 2 extra letters. Makes
Yeah,
such a
yeah.
difference. And Cassie's still calling it drain.
I know. That's all right.
It's all right. I went and edited the folder so she could see it's called drained. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, too fun.
Yeah, picturing like a clog or something in a
Yeah,
street.
I was like, that's a sewer right there. Blocked drain. No.
Yeah, drained is much better.
Because that's what they do to her within an inch of her life every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, ew.
Mm. They siphon her
Oh,
magic out. They don't siphon her life. Just her magic.
Yeah, but with an inch
but
of life, that sounds
Yeah.
poor thing.
so if they keep going, they will siphon life force, so they can kill.
Oh my
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow. Okay. I know you wanted to ask her too about cover art.
Yeah. How did you learn to do that? And like, how do you do that?
I studied art for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
History of art, history of architecture. And I figured I'm not about to pay $100 per cover. So I
Mhm.
thought,
Right.
I used to lecture Adobe Photoshop.
Oh,
So I thought, you know what, let me try
Wow.
my hand. You should have seen the initial ones. They were so bad. But I've learned, I've come a long way. My first cover I did was Zayas and Fox. That one I did for myself. And Cassie was like, yes, yes, we're taking it. And after that, I started doing all my covers. Just so much
Right.
easier. Yeah.
That's really cool.
that is really cool.
Yeah.
I have to keep that in mind because I have my big conference coming up soon. It's April. I wanted bookmarks for my second book, so I just quick threw one together and I found a great image and I'm like, that's so my second cover. I may need to push and say, please, please, please.
No, you can do that. If you got a picture, you can send it through and say, I bought this picture, use it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So back to our debut author. What have you written short stories and things before? Can't remember.
Not that I ever tried to publish. I said before, I'm an overwriter. I just like to keep going. I can't write a short story. But I've got some pesticide manuals out there now, and a master's thesis and a scientific paper, but that's about it that's out in the world. So this is
Great.
pretty new, yeah.
No, you and I, it sounds like have similar starts because I have a couple academic articles out there, but I have my doctorate, but
Oh,
not,
cool.
yeah, but novel just suddenly happened. So I hear that. What would you say is the biggest difference between writing for academia and writing a novel?
I think the one of the things that always jumps out to me is the passive language it's pretty acceptable, although I feel like maybe it's starting to change a little bit. But it's very prevalent in academic writing, whereas you wouldn't obviously want to do that in a novel.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I drive my beta readers nuts with that because I'm all about the I'd throw the passive in there without, without pardon.
Right.
Shameless. But, well, because I write in the first person too, so it really kind of helps
Oh,
break
yeah.
I, me. Is your book first person, third person?
It's third person and multiple point of view,
Oh,
which is, I
cool.
think it's my favorite way to write.
Yes.
I haven't written anything in first person probably since I was a kid. I don't really know why, but I think most of the books I've read and really enjoyed have just been in third person. So that's what I went with.
Is it harder, do you think, writing from different points of view than it is from maybe just one character's perspective? So I was like, hell no.
No, I don't think so. And I actually think it's almost, for me anyway, it I don't know how it comes off on the page really, but it feels a lot easier to write from someone who I have less in common with. Like for me, it feels easier to write from as a male or as some kind of creature. Yeah, so I like that. I like kind of jumping around to different perspectives. It makes it more interesting for me as a writer, I think.
Interesting.
I think it includes the reader into the whole picture where the other two characters don't know. So it's like a little bit of a secret.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's a more of
yeah.
an immersive experience for the reader.
Okay. Interesting. Very cool. So are you a plotter, a pantser, a planter in between? How would you say you approach this?
Um, Naturally, I am an extreme pantser. But I've gotten better about being more of a plantster. I at least kind of, have an outline now. Definitely not extensive notes. I'm not one of these people with like the board and the strings and the notes all over the place.
And they know the character's worst childhood memory and their character's favorite
Right.
color. And I mean, really, if it's not pertinent to the story, yeah.
Yeah, it's been more of a kind of a natural evolution for me with my stories, but it makes it really hard to write a query letter later. So, like, wait, what is the point of this again? So I've definitely switched that up from when I was writing 5 years ago or something like that. I've at least have an outline and I'll even write like a quick synopsis so I don't get too far off track.
Yeah, I've heard agents say it's a really good way to approach it because it does keep you from getting off track. So I don't know. I started as a total pantser and I got surprised actually not that long ago in a revision and my character likes beer and I had no idea. It just suddenly came out on the page. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So,
they get a mind of their own sometimes. So
yeah.
I feel like I'd just shatter, my whole plan if I had really mapped everything else too much. But
Yeah, it
right.
feels forced. Like you already
Yeah.
planned that they'll like beer, so now you have to find a way to introduce the fact that they like beer. And it's so forced, it's so staged. It's so much
Right.
nicer when you discover, as the reader will discover, that they like beer. And I mean, it's the same with your friends. You could be friends for 24 years and only discover that your friend hates licorice,
Right.
So
Because
it's,
it just slips in there.
yeah, it's not something you like, okay, here's my dossier. If you're going to
Mhm.
be my friend, read it. and then we'll talk afterwards, you know, and you're like, I'm sorry, if you don't like licorice, we cannot be friends, you know, that doesn't, that's how you click. It's just your characters are the same. But I want to ask, it ends
Yeah.
on a sort of cliffhanger, sort of, because it could be happily ever after. You could end it now, you know, and not read book 2. So is there going to be a book 2?
Yeah, there's a book 2. There's a book 3. I'd like it to be like a whole chronicle. I mean, I have some manuscripts sitting around, and somehow the Lorcai always make their way in there. And Sarlona and Ben show up in other places too. So there's definitely I had to break that, 400,000 word manuscript
Into something, yeah. That's why I thought
Yeah,
I'd
I was
ask.
gonna-
3 and then maybe 4 or 5. So
Yeah, I was gonna say,
there's
is that 400 words that didn't end up in this book? Are they going to be part of your future books, or did you just condense for one?
no, they're going to be part of future books. I mean, I was so new to writing at that point that it all has to be rewritten, but the story is there, basically. The characters are there. So yeah, I'm working on book 2 right now. And I definitely have plans for book 3, and I got some other things sitting around too that are related. So yeah.
That's cool. Now you said, so this isn't like a true romance, is it? Because yeah, so you're kind of free and open as to how you take the future books, then it sounds like.
Yeah, I think so. I'd call it more of like a romantic fantasy, maybe. I mean, the love story is central, but I feel like everything is a love story at the same time. Like you could make an argument that, Star Wars is a love story, or something like that. Like there's always going to be some kind of romance, and the relationship between Sarlona and Benton is definitely front and center. But
It has a happy
I
for
like,
now.
yeah, it's a happy for now. But I like a lot of action and
Yeah, same.
magic and sword fighting and that sort of thing. So I gotta have plenty of that in there
And
too.
intrigue and
Yeah.
betrayal.
All the
Yeah.
good
All the good stuff.
Nice.
All the
Juicy
good
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I did promise our audience we would hear this question. What is one thing you have learned from the time you first maybe started dabbling with story up until where you are now, almost published, because it's so close?
I mean, when I started dabbling, my big surprise was the word count thing. That's like,
Yeah.
as soon as I started researching, like, okay, I'm gonna get this published. How do I do that?
Oh, shucks.
Oh, I have a
400,000 is a
problem.
bit much.
I have a problem here. That was a big one. Also, just kind of the thinking of writing and publishing as a business. Of course, publishing is a business, but I hadn't really thought about it like that. And the idea that, some stories are in and some genres are out or whatever at a time, and that sort of thing.
I don't care about that. The story needs to be told.
I mean, that's how I feel for sure. But
Otherwise, we'd all be writing
see
50
that
Shades of
popping
Grey.
up. Right. And as soon as you get something written, then it's oversaturated. So
Right, because it
yeah.
takes even in the small press world, it takes so long to bring a book to publication. You don't know what the market's going to bear a year or two out. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what's something you hope to learn or improve on in your first year as a published author?
I mean, hopefully everything. That's my goal. But I want to get better at the marketing side of things. I kind of have no real clue how to do that, and and the balance, like, I don't know how people, put so much into newsletters and social media and all that and still find time to write. So I got to figure that out a little bit better, but yeah.
Right now, when have you fit writing into your schedule before you had to worry about all this marketing and stuff?
I am on Twitter. I am a avid 5 a.m. Writers Club member. It's always early in the morning, very early. Later in the day, my brain gets more and more tired. And that's when the house is quiet, when I have the place to myself and there's not a lot of distractions. So that works well for me.
And I'm curious, are we seeing behind you, is this a dedicated writing space? Is it a room?
It's not. This is my office that I originally set up during COVID for working at home. I like to write on the couch by the window.
Oh, cool.
But this is like my space for, work-related things. So
That's cool. Good for you. Now in your bio, it says, as a lifelong mariner with a background in ecology, Kerry shares the same reverence for the woods and sea as her heroine. So what did you want to be when you grew up? Because I was really fascinated by that.
When I was a little kid, I really wanted to be a wolf biologist. I was like obsessed with wolves.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the first thing. Always loved nature, always loved the sea. But I was really into wolves. And then I had some like pretty awkward middle school years, as a lot of people do. But mine was probably worse than usual. And at that time, I really wanted to be a professional wrestler. So turned back towards my my kind of elementary school desires a little bit in high school, and it was really kind of a toss up between, because I always loved writing. That was always in the background as well. Do I want to be a wildlife biologist or a writer? And it all worked out, but I listened to people who were like, "Oh, you can't be a writer. That's not a career." Thanks. So I went, science is the way to go. Wildlife biologists do not make a lot of money either. So, but that's where I went to school for, and I leaned towards entomology, and then I ended up in pest management in the end, which is cool. I like that, but I do wish I had put more into my writing along the way, because I could have done more of it, I think, or looked at it more seriously anyway.
So we should have Kerry and David talk, because we were just talking with him about cicadas and his current book on cicadas.
Oh, cool.
You guys would have a great conversation.
Yeah.
Do you live near the water?
I grew up on the coast of Maine, spent a lot of time at one of Maine's few sandy beaches. We do have a few, and it's magic for me. Now I live in the woods, but I am kind of right across from a river, so I can get to the river, and just a few minutes from a really gorgeous cold water lake as well. So I still get my water fix, and I head south every 6 months or so to get some time at the ocean as well. So
nice. My family for years would go to York Beach in Maine, and we just
oh yeah,
love York Beach.
yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, awesome. Is reverence for nature, because you talk about it in your biography, is that something that you've always had? Is it something that something in your life inspired you into it?
No, I've always had it. I grew up in the country and spent a lot of time by the water as well. My grandfather was an entomologist, And my dad was really interested in bugs, and he's really into trees. He's actually a chestnut farmer now.
Oh,
So he
cool.
really kind of instilled that in me. He was really interested in trees and insects and birds as well. So I kind of picked that up from him, I think, and just being out in the country.
Nice. Is there a particular element? Because again, I'm going off your bio for people who don't know where I'm coming
Yeah,
from.
yeah.
Is there a particular element that you feel yourself most drawn towards?
Definitely water. Like I said, kind of the beach, and I'm kind of scared of real deep water. Like I want to be out like with the abyss below me, but
Right.
where the water meets the land, that kind of liminal space really is it's
Mhm.
magic for me. I really love it, and I also love being out on the lake and fishing and that type of thing as well. So definitely water.
Very cool. I actually did have a couple of years where I wanted to be a marine biologist. I was really into whales and dolphins, but unfortunately, I saw the movie Abyss, where the woman drowns. We saw in health class The Voyage of the Mimi, where they get stranded on a desert island, and I'm like, and how to
Yeah, yeah.
survive on it. And I'm like, okay, no, I'm done. And then I learned, of course, that I get seasick, so that doesn't help either.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like um I don't get to do it much anymore, but I love to surf, but I was still like
Oh, cool.
always looking around like what's under there.
Yeah. Oh. How would you say your background has influenced the book Drained?
Quite a lot, I think. I think I pull the natural world into it a lot. I also taught anatomy and physiology labs for a few years, so I feel like that kind of leaks in as well.
Cool.
But yeah, I think mostly in the setting and what Sarlona is paying attention to, I think.
Awesome. You have on your website a blog called Druid's Den, where you feature a monster of the month. Tell us about that, because that's really cool. I enjoyed reading through that.
But yeah, so I felt like I needed a newsletter and a blog and that stuff to, get myself out there a little, and hopefully engage my audience once I have one. But yeah, I see a lot of writers writing about writing, and I'm like, well, I'm a debut author, and like, I don't have a lot of street cred there. So I was like, what would be interesting to me? Like, what won't be a chore to write every month? And I was like, oh, I like nature and I like monsters, and I already write about pests. So I was like, what can pull all that together? And I was like, well, maybe druidry would work for that. And that ties in, of course, to Sarlona as well. So it also incorporates bits from my books. So
It's
yeah,
brilliant because it looks so sharp on your website. You have it laid out so nice. It's such a great concept. And I love how in March you were writing about fungus, gnats, and kraken.
yeah, there's a mix for you. Fungus gnats are pretty boring, but I was interviewed by a newspaper about them recently because people like to do all kinds of weird things to get rid of pests, and one of them was to pour hydrogen peroxide mix on house plants to get rid of fungus gnats. And I don't like that as a pesticide safety educator. So I was like, well, now I got to write about fungus gnats. Because I was misquoted a little bit too, and I was like, I need to
Oh,
set the record straight. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, so don't just dump chemicals on things. That's not the way to do it.
Yeah. That was what was really interesting. To our audience, make sure you check it out because it's useful, the information that you had there talking about, how to um disrupt its life cycle. You don't need to use chemicals. So
Yeah,
yeah.
so a lot of what I do for work is telling people not to use pesticides, even though my job is all about pesticides. Um, because a lot of times you don't need them. Either the pest is temporary or you can just change the way you're doing things a little bit, and solve the problem that way. And then when you are going to use pesticides, that should be the last resort, and never, your first tool. It should be the last tool you pull out of your toolbox.
And to choose wisely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this out here for whoever's listening, follow the label directions perfectly. Because that is federal law. And if you use it wrong, there's no guarantee that it's safe, no matter, that they sell it at the grocery store or not. You have to follow that label direction.
Yeah.
So, that's my work pitch.
Good advice. And then the other side of that is, of course, the Kraken. So I have to ask, are you a fan of either Clash of the Titans or maybe Percy Jackson?
Not super. I actually don't think I've read Percy Jackson. And I
I
wasn't
have.
a huge, yeah.
I read them
And
so the kids can read them. See, check them first.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not a huge fan of Clash of the Titans either, but
Yeah.
there's a kraken early and drained, so that's what
Briefly,
briefly, yeah.
very briefly.
Yeah, it's not
We'll mourn it later. Yeah.
it doesn't last long, but
No, it doesn't.
That's cool. I loved the old Clash of the Titans with Harry Hamlin.
Mm.
Yeah, I like Harry Hamlin back then.
cool.
Okay. So I loved this quote in your bio where you said, and while she prefers to take down her enemies on roller skates, like her male lead, she loves the feeling of a sword in her hand. Do you sword fight?
I haven't since grad school really, but I did. I was in the fencing club and I really enjoyed it. I want to start doing it again. It was so much fun. And I should. I'm still with the college, so there's no reason I can't. Just, the child and the work and the life gets in the way, but one of
Yeah.
these days I'm going to make time to do it again because it was so much fun.
Good for you. Are you foil or sailor?
I am neither. I am a Schlager girl, which is a heavy rapier. So
Okay.
I really enjoyed the Society of Creative Anachronism style of fencing. So less with the sport fencing, although that's really important for the basics. So I like to fight with a big sword in one hand and a dagger in the other. It's really fun.
Awesome.
So yeah,
Oh my gosh. And you learned that through the fencing club.
I did. Yeah.
Wow. Did they go out on competitions?
They would join tournaments and things with the SCA that I just mentioned, and they have tournaments. So in that way, I don't think we had kind of a much competitive sport fencing going on. But that's fine with me. I like the. I don't like to stay in a straight line. I like to move around.
Everything goes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we are out of time. So where can people find you online?
So I do have a website, kwbernard.com. I'm pretty active on Twitter as well. I'm Kerry W. Bernard on there. And I have a Facebook page and Instagram, and those are both KW Bernard as well. So definitely come visit me in one of those places. That would be great.
Excellent. And we will put links down below to your website, our publisher's website. Please check out Kerry's book. It's due to come out very, very soon. Please like this video, subscribe, follow, depending on where you're watching. If you have any questions for Kerry that we haven't asked, put them in the comments below. We will get them to her and get you answers. Kerry, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you both very much. This was fun.
It was
Good.
lovely meeting you
Yeah.
after all this time.
I know. Great meeting you both as well.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.